Hi, I'm Joe Alterman, Executive Director of Neranenah. Formerly the Atlanta Jewish Music Festival, Neranenah, which means to come together and sing in Hebrew, is a non-profit cultural event series with roots in Jewish culture and musical traditions. We seek not to define Jewish arts and culture, but to embrace its diversity, subjectiveness, and personal nature to create a space open and inviting to all. We honor tradition, but are far from traditional. Our minds and ears are open. The fingerprints of Jewish culture can be found all around us. And with that in mind, we're excited to introduce a new series, Neranenah Scholars. On today's first episode, I'm excited to speak with writer, pianist, producer, and overall musical renaissance man, Ben Sidran, about the Jewishness of the classic American song, Take Me Out to the Ballgame. Ben's book, There Was a Fire, Jews, Music, and the American Dream, is a fascinating read on the subject of Jewish contributions to American music. And over the next few months, Ben and I will be speaking about some of the most iconic American music and the Jewish stories within.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited. This is the first event we're holding under our new name, Neranenah. I find it pretty fitting because in many ways, this renaming is the culmination of this What is Jewish Music hunt that I've been on ever since taking on the role 2 years ago. And it's really your work that has shaped that. When I started this job as executive director of Atlanta Jewish Music Festival, so many people, supporters and audience members kept asking me, what is Jewish music? So I realized I needed to figure this out. And so I spoke with hundreds of people. People told me, it's anything in Hebrew or anything from Israel or anything based on the Old Testament, or they'd sing a prayer in synagogue that they didn't know is really a German drinking song put to Hebrew. Or, someone would tell me it's Bob Dylan or George Gershwin, or someone told me Jewish music is a Jew playing music. Other ones told me it's music for a Jewish audience. Someone even told me Cole Porter, who's the only non-Jew from that era. They basically said that Cole Porter recognized that 80% of the audience coming into Broadway at the beginning were Jewish people. So he had to consciously think of how to write for a Jewish audience. So that made his music Jewish music more than Harold Arlen's potentially. And I, after hearing all this, I realized that everyone was right, but nobody was right also. And I kind of found my definition. It kind of hit me one night. A lot of people, when I told them I'm running this festival, they thought it's the Hava Nagila festival. And it hit me that if you're a fan, that's klezmer music. And if you're a fan of that, you'll type in the internet, when's the next klezmer music concert coming to town? So it hit me that no one's typing in when's the next Jewish music concert coming to town. And so it really hit me that, at least to me, the Jewishness of the music comes more from the story, not necessarily from the melody. And I got to talk to Wynton Marsalis about this festival one time. All I said was, I'm running a Jewish music festival in Atlanta. And all he said was, Jewish music, that's fascinating. It's not really a thing, but it's all over American music. I said, exactly. And so it's interesting because when anyone asks me to really explain this whole Jewish contributions to music thing, which is I see is what we're really doing and why we needed to change the name versus Jewish music, the first story I always tell anyone is the one of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. So it'd be great to start with that.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game was written by Albert von Tilzer, untrained, but gun for hire, writing pop songs in the early 1900s. His brother had a publishing company. And, he, back then, like everybody else, they wrote songs for any occasion. Writing songs was not necessarily considered an art form as it became later on. It was utilitarian, and the Jews who were involved in it, who pioneered the music publishing industry, if there was something in the news, they would write a song about it. And this was, I think, around 1908. Lo and behold, the Forward, the Jewish newspaper of record, wrote an article about baseball. And the idea was to help orient the waves of Jewish immigrants who are coming to America to American popular culture. What is baseball? And so von Tilzer got this idea to write a song about baseball. He was not a baseball fan, and word has it, although there's no way to corroborate it, that he had actually never been to a baseball game. He had just read a little bit about it in the foreword, and he wrote the song, which we now know as Take Me Out to the Ballgame, an incredible song. First of all, it's a beautiful melody. If you slow it down and play it as a waltz, it's a gorgeous melody. But more than that, when you look at the lyrics to it, it's extraordinary because he has this line where he says, "Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never come back." That's really not about going to a ball game. That's about looking for not just a home, but a crowd in which to immerse oneself. It's, the Jewish canard, the canard about Jewish people is that they want to take over things. But in fact, the Jews, when they got to America, wanted to become part of something. They really were looking for a cultural home as well as a physical home. And so his song, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, I think lives on because, first of all, it's fun to sing, it's easy to sing, but also the lyrics are so universal and in some ways so romantic that this really does stand as one of the earliest, greatest Jewish songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the romantic thing, and it kind of brought to mind, I guess Jewish composers, especially from that era, have kind of succeeded, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, in romanticizing other things in American society, like the Swanee River or Christmas or Easter. Is that the right word I'm using, romanticizing? I mean, Swanee River was just a
stream in Florida. It wasn't really a river. There were no levees. The Swanee River was picked out of an atlas by the great American songwriter Stephen Foster when he was looking for a 2-syllable river to put into the song. His brother was what do you call it? Not an architect, but a developer, and had this atlas in the house. And Foster went and picked out the Swanee River for no particular reason. And then when the Jews came to America, particularly those that went into songwriting, of course, fell in love with the work of Stephen Foster. He was the greatest of the 19th century. But also they liked the fact that he romanticized the South. Now, Stephen Foster wasn't from the South either, which is a nice note as well. I mean, this bucolic South that he writes about never existed. Old folks at home never existed. But the Jews latched onto it, first of all, because he was such a great and successful songwriter. They wanted to be like him. But they also were learning about America through his imagery. And it was very romantic imagery.
Mm. Yeah, and do you remember that Philip Roth quote from, what was it, Operation Shylock about Christmas and Easter?
Yeah.
I don't know if that relates to you, but to me it kind of does, yeah.
Well, it does. He was talking about Irving Berlin, and he said something to the effect, because Irving Berlin, the only Jewish song Irving Berlin wrote really was a song called Cohen Owes Me $90, which is not well known. But he wrote 2 classic Christian holiday songs, White Christmas and Easter Parade. And Roth said that he managed to make White Christmas about snow, and he de-Christed the Christian holidays, and he made Easter Parade about hats, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, the only other idea you kind of mentioned that I'd like to touch on in this song is you mentioned the wanting to be a part of American society and always seen as, an insider, outsider. Could you just touch on that concept of Jews being kind of the ultimate outsiders, which really made them the ultimate insiders in a way?
Yeah, because in America, especially as the turn of the 20th century, when immigrants were coming from all over, everybody was more or less becoming American in the same way. The Irish and the Scotch and the British, they were all kind of outsiders. But the Jews were the ultimate outsiders because they hadn't had citizenship, most of them, prior to coming to America. They were outsiders, not just in America, but for thousands of years. And so they had that perspective. They also had what I call the longing for belonging. They really, really, in their marrow, understood home, being without a home and wanting a home. And it turned out in America, this idea of independence, the whole Wild West thing where a man rides into the future and discovers, his fate. That imagery played very well with the kind of sentiment that the Jews brought with them. And so in a way, the Jews came completely out of left field from the shtetls of the Pale of Settlement to an advanced industrial platform, but with this idea, which, the famous Groucho Marx saying, I wouldn't be part of any group that would have me. But there's something about the Jews that it's always an arm's length from completely immersing themselves. So similarly with Take Me Out to the Ballgame, there's a feeling in that song that the person singing it wants to be part of this crowd, but at the same time, he's outside of the crowd. Even though he's inside, he's looking out. He's outside looking in, he's inside looking out. It's this Jewish conundrum about what makes the Jewish experience so powerful is its ability to contextualize where they are, and they're able to do it because they're never totally immersed in it. It's this distance that makes the Jewish experience, and particularly in America, so American.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. Yeah. I mean, is there anything else on this song you'd like to touch, or those are just the kind of?
No, it's really a stake in the river when you think about Jewish songs and the passing of history. Take Me Out to the Ballgame, and that era, 1908. We've all seen the photos of the Lower East Side. We've seen the photos of the Jewish immigrants washed up on the docks with all their belongings, and you think to yourself what they were facing, what they were going into, and what they brought with them. It's just an extraordinary moment in history. In some ways, much like the moment in history that we're in right now, a moment that hadn't been seen before, a moment whose outcome could not have been predicted. And to write a song about a game, a sport, with such a romantic platform, if only that could be done today. I would love to hear that song. The writer of Take Me Out to the Ballgame, Albert von Tilzer, his real name was Albert Gumm, Gumm. And he changed it to von Tilzer because it sounded German. And back in the early 20th century, if you were Jewish and you were German, you were more accepted than if you were Jewish and you were Lithuanian or from the Pale of Settlement. So he became von Tilzer to sound more Germanic, but in fact, he was Albert Gumm. And, Judy Garland's name was Francis Gumm, and he was, in fact, Judy Garland's uncle.
Oh yeah, that reminded me. Did you write in There Was a Fire that for West Side Story that they originally wanted to have a Jewish family, but they chose a Puerto Rican family?
A gang. It was originally the plan was to have a Jewish gang, and it's apocryphal to say, well, who's going to be intimidated by a group of Jews walking down Fifth Avenue? It's like a group of accountants coming in. But yeah, for reasons of narrative, they changed it to a Puerto Rican gang.
Oh yeah. I thought I read somewhere that it wasn't seen as American enough or something, but that could have been totally off.
Well, that ties into the whole discussion of Jews and wanting to be more American than the rest of the Americans. Like, and this also goes to the idea of all the songwriters. Irving Berlin, particularly, when asked what does being a Jew have to do with it, would say, well, being a Jew has nothing to do with it. I'm an American. I write American songs. The thought that, as Bob Dylan, who was very Jewish and had a very prominent Jewish nose, the fact that he would say when asked, are you Jewish? He said, no, my nose is because I'm part Native American, as if being Native American took precedent over being a Jew to be an American. Wow. It's crazy, but it's been a subtext of the Jewish experience here. So talking about Take Me Out to the Ballgame as a ballad, I mean, you normally think of the song as if it's being played on a bass drum and 100 kazoos and a bunch of people drinking beer and eating peanuts and watching the game. It's a flag waver. But here's the song slowed down. And so when I suggest that his saying, I don't care if I never come back. It's more than about loving the ball game. It's about a longing for belonging. Take me out to the ball game.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope you'll join us next week. As a nonprofit, we can only afford to put on great programming like this thanks to your support. Please visit us at neranenaharts.org for more information and to learn how to get involved.